Hello and welcome to the end of October, which is a little bit terrifying, and that of course means the ID update.
Yay! Here we
So,
are.
Heidi, how have you been?
I've been pretty busy. So busy that I didn't realize that DevLearn is in like 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I'm like, wait, why is my manager putting a meeting on my calendar for so far in the future? I didn't even get a chance to block off these dates yet. Surprise! It's not so far into the future, is it?
No, it came around real quick. It was when BA started messaging going, you need to check into your flight, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a horrible process. And yes, it is. Can confirm.
It is. It is.
But, cool. Well, we've got I think we've got quite an interesting set of topics today. A little bit of a varied bunch, maybe, and some very good, I think, main discussion topics later on in the show.
Yeah.
Around some
Excited.
really impressive sounding claims. But do you want to kick us off with your first top story?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really can't start the October update without talking about EY firing all of their dozens of staffers for taking multiple online trainings at the same time. So this story is basically that apparently dozens, I don't know how many specifically, but that all of these people took more than one training at a time, right? There was some sort of event. They had their learning week and they invited people to take as many courses as their schedule would allow is what the news story claims. And what happened is someone found out. The company decided that this was a breach of ethics and that you can only attend one training course at a time. And so they fired anyone and everyone who was caught doing more than one of these sessions during the employer-sponsored learning week. So as I'm sure you can imagine, the employees were pretty upset. And they have been talking to journalists, they've been talking in forums, and they've said basically that EY creates the kind of culture under which you're encouraged to multitask. And many people have multiple client calls going on at one time. That was an interesting story from someone that they will shut off their camera and talk to one client and then wait and shut off the other camera. So they say that this is kind of encouraged, but then they also said that some of the sessions only overlapped by a half an hour. So like one was finishing while the other was starting. And so if you have dual screens, they were saying that they had one on one screen, one on the other, and they were just politely letting the one finish while starting the other. Or that also like that they thought both were interesting enough that they wanted to kind of try and hear both and kind of bounce back and forth, right? So yeah, that was the argument. That was the standoff, and they were basically called into meetings and told that they had violated ethics and asked to leave. Now, the other thing that's important to bring up, because I think that this may impact this in some way, is that in 2022, EY was found out for kind of hiding that most of their, or like a large portion of their employees had cheated on the certified public accountant exams required to work at the accounting firm, and that they had hidden these this unethical thing, and were basically ultimately forced to pay a tune of $100 million for kind of hiding and not following regulations. So a lot of the employees feel like this is an overreaction or an overcorrection to that problem. Tom.
This is like I think it's easy to say that it is definitely an overreaction, right? Like that's properly bonkers just to sack people for attending multiple courses at the same time. Like partially because you let it happen, Like, clearly,
Yes.
like, if one person did it, you could go, well, that person's being a bit of a dick, right? We need to speak to them about that. But
Sure.
if lots of people were doing this, clearly this is like an established culture, which is what they seem to suggest. Like, there's no way
Absolutely.
everyone just suddenly out of the blue had the same thought. And this, funnily enough, this goes back to years and years and years ago. I'm not sure if it happens globally or if it's more of a UK thing, but we have Learning at Work Week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So worked in an organization, and they were desperately trying to do the right thing, which was, hey, the more learning you do this week, the more points you get. And for once, points actually mean something because you can cash them in next week for prizes, which include time off or holiday
Nice.
vouchers. A really good approach, actually, to trying to encourage people to engage with stuff. What it actually led to was people binging digital content. Like, when you
Sure.
looked at it, like, people were at home at 10 o'clock at night binging e-learning to try and just complete everything on the platform that week to get as many points as they could to buy stuff the next week. They weren't
Sure.
learning anything.
Of course
And
not.
this is kind of the challenge of any of these weeks. I think they always try and do something good, but actually drive really counterproductive short-term behaviors, both from the users and from the business, because the business does a good job that week. It kind of feels like it's done its job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so yes, as an individual instance, it's all a bit ridiculous. The business has lost its mind, I think, if it's getting rid of people like that. But maybe it's highlighting a larger problem of these weeks and days that give us the illusion of doing the right thing when we only have to do it for a very short period of time, and usually they do more harm than good. Would, you know, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I want to read to you. There's a quote here at the end from one of the anonymous users. Oh, it's just such a good one. I got to read it to you. If this was so important, then implement better systems.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could say that across L&D.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No, this is it. It's the same with everything. When someone goes, "Oh, what do you mean we can't track it?" It's like, well, you bought a system that doesn't allow tracking. If you wanted to track it, do you know what you should have done? What's this? You know, this. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like at that point, if the business is worried about it in hindsight, again, it's kind of on whoever set this stuff up. If you know, you do. We all know that you have to manage to exclusion. We all know that you
Of course.
shouldn't, and it's bad management, but we also know that it's a practical reality, especially in big
Sure.
businesses. So why would you not? I get the feeling that, as you said, had this other thing not happened previously, they would not care about this. In
Sure.
fact, they would probably be praising it.
They probably would. But also at the same time, raise your hand if you've ever cheated on a training for your work before. You don't have to answer if you want to plead the fifth, but I mean, I actually had a situation just like within the last 2 weeks where I was taking a mandatory compliance course for one of the clients that I work for. And because I wasn't paying attention, I answered every single question incorrect, because I just wanted to hurry up and get it done. And I had just taken it. It was one of those things where like I had just taken it, but because like that the annual sends it out every October, I had to take it again within way less than a year. So I was just rushing through it. I answered every question incorrectly. And then at the end, it said, "Congratulations, you've passed the course." And I went, "Wait, what?" I literally answered every question wrong. And here before me is a certificate that I saved to my computer as WTF. That's literally what I saved it because I was like, I didn't. Like I clicked through it as fast as I could. I got every quiz question wrong and I passed. I'm going to get called into a meeting soon.
But you also have to say, well, who does that sit with? Clearly, someone did not do a very good job of QAing this particular module, did they? Um,
Right.
and if
Right.
you cannot expect your end users to be like, "Excuse me, this massively benefits me, but I'd like it undone, please."
Right. I'm
You know,
not telling anybody unless they see it on this YouTube live. They'll never know.
but and again, it's a bit like, when a company releases software that doesn't work and treats its users as public betas and doesn't establish that relationship, or when we do this and we can't expect users and other business units to be like, "Oh, by the way, you've messed up there, could you fix that, please?" No.
Right.
Like, that's
Right.
our job, is to get it right. It's, and something like that seems like, I all I can imagine is someone who's had enough of the module and just does a couple of happy path tests to make sure you can pass it, doesn't ever test what happens if you get everything wrong.
Right. Yep.
Hits
There it is.
publish and goes, "Well, it works. Look, everyone's passed, so it must be working." That's something I've heard people say in the
We've
forum.
had 100% pass rate. This is epic. This is the best e-learning we've ever made.
This is it. Absolutely. Oh,
Someone's going to win an award for this one.
hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Should we move on?
Let's move on, because I think you've got an interesting follow-on story to that.
Well, it's actually, so it's a follow, but it's also chronologically not a follow. So
Ooh.
I just happened to see a couple weeks ago a post on the instructional design subreddit about compliance training. And the question that someone posed was, has a compliance training record ever protected your company in court? And does anyone have an example that they could share about it preventing a lawsuit? And the comments were the most interesting part, because a lot of people were like, they couldn't give a lot of details, obviously, right? Because this is very legal stuff. But a lot of people were like, I've had to appear in court. I've had my, what is this? I have an example around safety training and an on-the-job fatality. I can't go into the details, but it was the most stressful quarter of my life. There was a lot of people who had to show, like, print out reports from LMSs to go up against someone in court who is either claiming like wrongful termination or workman's comp, or, different things like that. Someone else said that their training was subpoenaed as part of a hearing, even though it wasn't compliance training, and they had to convert more than 100 e-learnings to PDFs to take to court. But I thought it was really interesting that at that point, not only is it on the L&D team to prove that someone took the training, but then they have to do all this extra work to provide the proper paperwork and the proper records for whoever these legal people are, right? Like, what a headache.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I would be very interested from almost to get like a legal expert's view of, in those cases, yes, they were there, how important was that, and how one way or the other securing a verdict was that information? Because
Sure.
I don't think most of the stuff that comes out of most LMSs is worth the paper it's inevitably printed on.
Sure.
And I would suspect at the kind of scrutiny information is put under in a courtroom, very little reporting from L&D departments would stand up to it. Like, you look at some of the claims that you see in reports, both industry reports and business reports, about the impact of L&D doubling workforce efficiency and this kind of thing. They don't make sense to us at a plain reading. In a courtroom, I couldn't imagine how they would survive any kind of testing.
Well, no, because, I mean, yeah, you generate a report. Yeah, it's from an LMS. But, I mean, think about the example we just talked about, the compliance training that I failed every quiz question. How is someone not going to, like, figure that out or discover that that's the issue, right? Like, I mean, or take it themselves, right? Like I don't know, like how, like you said, we need a legal expert. Is there someone watching who's a legal expert?
Like an actual, not an internet legal expert, like an
Yeah.
actual legal expert, like has
Right.
done the job for more than 6 minutes, and it's.
Do we have to show the part of the training where we cover that specific topic too?
Yeah.
Is that why we still have to take compliance training that talks about flash drives?
Specifically flash drives.
Specifically not picking one up off of a picnic table.
This is it. But it says nothing about external hard drives.
No,
Like,
which is more common to run into in 2024.
like,
Even though neither is what you're running into in 2024.
No, this is it. Do you know what? It would be very interesting to put some some common LMS reporting for compliance in front of like someone who knows the law and says, would this actually cover a business in this circumstance? That would be that. That's an idea for a video. I might have to see if
There we go.
If you have a tame lawyer who we could borrow for half an hour.
Tame lawyers.
That's no, they're all quite expensive. But no, that'd be very interesting. It would. It goes back to like the issues with SCORM though, right? Because the way SCORM gives us information is just so horrible and difficult to understand. I had it like last week. I had a client who there was just an assessment on their LMS doing a funny thing, and I say that because even after spending a couple of days on it, no idea what it was really doing. We know it wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing, but of course it doesn't tell you that what it's doing. It just spits out crap, basically. Just strings of letters and numbers, and you're like, oh, that's not what we're expecting to see. So something has gone wrong. What is it? We don't know. We just know something's gone wrong. It's really unhelpful compared to kind of every other data gathering system we use on the internet. So, interesting.
Well, and that's the thing is everyone always says we have to use SCORM because it's reliable. Like we need the reliable data. And I'm like, do you not, like, as somebody who had to take a number of stats classes for my PhD program and qualitative and quantitative analysis, like way more math than I ever wanted to come in contact with again. Do you know what the definition of reliable data really means? It means that it does the same thing over and over consistently throughout time. And we all know, if you've ever uploaded a course to an LMS, you know that just doesn't happen. It's not reliable at all.
I think the thing is the fact that we discussed this last time. I think like there are so many better options. Like we don't need it anymore.
Right.
Like every website I've ever built, whether it was the most basic landing page or whatever, gives me better, more accurate, and more detailed information about the people who look at it than any SCORM file ever has. I will get more usable data off the back of this live stream than I have off any SCORM file anyone has ever completed that I've created.
Exactly.
Like, it's ridiculous to think that we're still sort of clinging on to this file format.
For sure. And I mean, if we're talking about something that's defensible, like I use Microsoft Clarity to track my web traffic for my Webflow site for my business. And it will give you actual video clips of someone visiting your site. We could have that. We could have it all. We could have that and then have a video to bring to court to say, hey, this person clicked here and then they clicked here and then she failed every quiz question. What a loser. Send her to jail.
Probably not going to happen. But like I guarantee you, in any big business, the IT department already have this because they'll have it for when like their servers go down. In the event that something happens, it will do like one of those automated, like the 10 screens before it happened. What happened is like rollback images, so they can go back and go, oh, here we go. We've got this blue screen situation. We've got this code. We can now figure out what's wrong. So yeah, it's just I don't know. I feel like a lot of that is just driven by comfort. But again, it would be very interesting to really understand, like from someone else's perspective who knew what they were talking about, how important L&D's presence in any of those cases actually was. And if it worked, because what we don't know is what the outcome of all those cases were. That's
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yes.
No one said on Reddit whether or not, I think some of them said that like they were able to, it accomplished the intended goal, but yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's jump to I say let's jump to a scary one. To be honest, this is like the prime example of it sounds incredibly scary till you read it and then go, oh no, that's just the internet doing internet stuff. So Anthropic have caused a bit of a scare. And I say they've caused a bit of a scare. Again, some of you will read this and just kind of go, whatever. I've dropped a link to the article about it there in the chat. So basically, Claude can now control your mouse. Now, there's the oh my god, AI is literally taking control of my computer situation here. But there's also the but a human still had to tell it to do it argument. So actually, nothing has changed. There were already bots that you can go take control, like keyloggers or mouse movers or anything like that. To my mind, this will end up being used for one massive thing. You will no longer, if you're one of those horrible businesses that monitors people's activity on Teams, they won't have to get physical mouse jigglers anymore. They can just tell an AI to do it. That's the biggest win of this right there.
Absolutely. And what, I mean, if it's, let's say it's like $20 a month or something for the premium package, it's worth it if you do work for one of those companies with those toxic cultures like that. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
This is it. And I think there's some things to kind of be aware of with this as well. It's like, first of all, if you are worried about this stuff, one, just don't use it yourself. Like if you're genuinely worried about it, don't use it yourself. Make sure you've got passwords on your computers. Make sure your router's set up with the firewall on it. This is all super basic, like circa 2000s home cybersecurity stuff, and it still works. Still works absolutely fine. Also, this is why, those annoying catcher screens that we do where it's, click all the buses, click all the fences, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is our best defense against this stuff because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't just look at what you're clicking. It looks at how you're clicking it. And this is why they've actually remained really good at spotting and rejecting AI, because AI moves in very straight lines. Because it looks at all the pixels, says, those are the things I want to click, and it just goes bap, 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 tick the box, click. Humans don't do that. We waggle the mouse around, don't we? We move in slight curves. It's not, we don't take the most efficient path to everything we want to click. It's looking at so many variables other than just what you click. And I think that's making sure people understand that that's what those security measures are doing is going to become more and more important. But I think what this also shows is that the people doing this, or the people who actually did this, do have lots of sort of technical skill and a big background in tech, obviously, but you don't need it. And I think the biggest thing we should be reading into this is whenever someone goes, oh, well, part of being a great e-learning developer is going to be you're going to need to learn some JavaScript. Kind of like, yeah, maybe not. Like, why would I learn it when this can tell me what it is and just write it for me? I was speaking to some people the other day about using Adapt. In fact, we mentioned it on a webinar together. And I've been using ChatGPT to write Adapt modules from scratch.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it worked, not the content, but like I wanted to be able to add an Adapt module into a course that was a role play scenario that connected to an LLM using an API chain, blah, blah, blah. This doesn't exist, so it needs to create a whole new plugin for the authoring tool. Just get ChatGPT to do it. It's an open source code base. It can look at the code base. It can figure out what it needs to be, write it all. All I have to do is click download and then install it. Like, this stuff no longer requires us to spend months, years, half a career building technical knowledge. We've got all of that stuff available to us now. Does that carry some risk? Yes, it does. Should you start using code from ChatGPT in your massively secure organizational headquarters? Probably not. Can you use it to troubleshoot and create stuff at home and figure stuff out and learn? Yes, you can. So yeah, I think this is a cause to be intrigued and excited about possibility, but also a reminder to, take care of your basic cybersecurity stuff. It's still the best defense you've got. Make sure your passwords aren't the same thing. Make sure your data is backed up. Just real basic stuff that we still all know, at least someone that, only ever has their data in one place. If they delete an email, it's gone forever. They can never find anything. All their passwords are the same, or just the number at the end is different. We all know these people, so now's the time to encourage them. And if you need to, scare them with articles like this.
Yeah. Scare all your friends. It's Halloween.
Exactly.
After all,
if they don't get their stuff under control, Claude will steal it. That's the important thing to know.
Yeah. Love it.
Cool. So I think you've got the next story.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to learning more about this one. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, so it is called An Effort to Bolster Employment for Individuals with Autism and Other Disabilities. Very unclear on what that might mean, but Wells Fargo has decided to partner with the University of Connecticut's Center for Neurodiversity and Employment Innovation as part of a $3.75 million grant. And they're going to create these full-day workshops to bring together leaders from 10 to 15 different Fortune 500 companies to try and solve what they're calling a problem with underemployment or unemployment with the neurodiverse. So they're trying to do these workshops that are going to, train people on why neurodiversity is good, I guess. It's a little unclear on the actual what, but the story is that they're going to be providing neurodiversity training to these Fortune 500 companies at no cost to the companies, because obviously the University of Connecticut has this grant that they're taking on. So it's kind of like this, hey, it's not going to cost you anything, but we want to kind of solve this problems, because according to the University of Connecticut, an estimated 1 in 6 individuals fall into the neurodiverse population, but 66% of neurodivergent people are either under or unemployed, despite being highly skilled.
That's really interesting. I think I was going to say training on it can only be a good thing. It depends on the quality of said training. But let's err on the side of optimism here and say, hey, they've been given this grant because this stuff's really good. It's going to be really impactful. I think that's kind of my big question, is that what will the impact actually be? Because I think, especially when I think of like Fortune 500 companies, they are not companies that put the well-being of people ahead of profit, as in ever. No matter what their ad campaigns might say, that's how you get to be a Fortune 500 company. You don't get it by being a good guy in the space,
Yeah.
So I think that would be interesting. I think the other question would be, if it wasn't free, would any of them be doing it? I think is probably arguably the way. Funny enough, yesterday, yes, I was at an accessibility event all day. Absolutely fantastic. We had Susie Miller talking, and we had Michael Osborne talking and running hands-on demos for stuff. And he made a really interesting comment to me about the neurodiverse and divergent conversation, which is that it's kind of been badged as its own thing, and that really we should be talking about it in the broader sense of cognitive sort of disability, which was really interesting, because it's certainly for me, like, it's not my area of expertise. I did some research earlier this year, and I say research, I mean reading, not conducting new research,
Sure.
into, what's going on and how we can try and help with certain things. But everywhere did draw this kind of slightly fluffy line between cognitive impairment, cognitive disability, and neurodivergence. And it's like, that's really unhelpful, because it makes people think it's two very separate things when they're implementing like support measures. And because one is disability and one is just, this is who this person is, they prioritize disability because that, language wise, sounds more legally threatening.
Sure.
And I was like, that's an incredibly complicated idea, because certainly a lot, like, some people I spoke to when I was doing that research were just like, yes, I consider myself to have a disability. Some very adamantly was like, no, I'm not a disabled person, this is just part of who I am. And that's that's going to be the same for every community, right? Some people say
Sure.
their dyslexia is their superpower. I consider it to be the biggest pain in my ass.
Sure.
That's,
Sure.
none of these communities agree with everything each other says. So it's very difficult to know what to call things and how to actually try and help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And I guess that would be interesting to learn more about with this, is when they say it's for neurodivergent,
Yeah.
neurodiversity
Neurodivergent.
initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting to understand why they landed on that descriptor as opposed to focusing on broader kind of cognitive disability or cognitive impairment
Sure.
or anything like that. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, because they haven't even defined what constitutes neurodiversity. Like I said, the article literally says,
Yeah.
what does it say? It's literally autism and other disabilities. Like,
That's a big category.
because I literally just learned, I didn't know this, but I literally just learned that technically being gifted is considered a neurodivergency. Being like,
Interesting.
yeah, I didn't know that. My son just is in the gifted class this year, and we went to conferences, and I was like doing some research, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm neurodivergent that way then. But that's certainly not a cognitive disability, right? Like, that's the opposite. That's like, you're not neurotypical because you are like more intelligent in different areas, right? I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Based on the definition semantically.
Yeah.
But then you've got little tiny pockets, like it's one of those things, like, I always knew I was neurodivergent, but I was like, but what flavor is this? Because I'm not autistic, I don't have ADHD, like, where do I land? And I found out not long ago that I'm what's called a highly sensitive person. Who knew? But that is so there's so many different types and flavors. And then you also have a lot of people who have to self-diagnose because they don't have the resources to get the proper diagnosis, or it can take a very long time, or they might not be listened to. So there's a lot of multifaceted parts to this that it would be very interesting to see the outcome.
And funny enough, this is one of the reasons why whenever the topic comes up, like, I always find it very interesting to engage in and try and learn from, but it's one of those topics where, like, very strictly, if a client comes to us and says, hey, you want to do something around this, we're just like, we are not the people for you. Like, just like, you're probably trying to do something really good, but you need, like, an expert. This is not something where you bring in a generic consultancy and we find an SME, blah, blah. Really, you want the person doing this to be an expert end to end. That's where you get people like Susie, people like Michael. They do wonderful, wonderful stuff because they really focus on that. And I think often that's maybe why I have a slightly dim view of a lot of training in this space, is that it's written by well-meaning L&D teams driven by senior leadership that want to do. Sometimes they want to do something good. I think more often than not, they want to be seen to be doing something good, usually
Exactly.
around awareness days through the year, unfortunately. And yeah, I sometimes doubt its effectiveness of actually making a difference other than making everyone involved in making it feel better, which is a
Yeah.
problem.
No, I mean, that's a great point, because you think of things like, what do we call it? Rainbow washing, when companies put up the Pride banner in June,
Yes.
but the rest of the year they don't care about our LGBT family. And, we literally had that at a company I worked for, where they disproportionately laid off the LGBT ERG 1 month after Pride.
Jeez. Yeah.
Fantastic. But it's the same, where is this like a response to getting rid of DEI? Is this, trying to even the playing field, balance things out? Or is this just Wells Fargo trying to look good? What other things is Wells Fargo doing in the news right now? Should we be looking at that and comparing, like?
Yeah, it's. I know that there is an argument to say, does that matter? If this individual thing is good, does it matter why the company's doing it? And I get the argument to say, no, this can still be good while other things are bad. Yeah, if you're only doing good because you're also doing bad and you need something for people to look at, is that really good at all?
Mm,
It's a bit like if you give to charity, but you only do it so you can tell other people you give to charity. Is that charitable? Or is
right.
that marketing? Like,
Right. Because the money
if
is still going to charity.
this is it. I struggle with businesses that I've worked in that do that very
Sure.
publicly give to charity. I
Yeah.
get the argument that, oh, by them being loud about it, other people will see it, come across it, and jump on board. But that doesn't work. Like it just doesn't. And so I don't. It's one of those things where you're like, I don't know how I feel about this, but something's not right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I feel
But,
that.
cool. Well, let us know how you feel about it in the chat, because as you can tell, I don't know what to think. So
Same.
do let us know if you've got any thoughts as well. If you've got any questions or topics that you'd like us to discuss in the second part of the show, please do throw them in there. We would love your input. Next thing I wanted to mention then, the OU released, the Open University that is, released its 2024 Learning Trends Report. This is a really interesting, really short report by the Open University, just in like the 6 things that they think it's worth paying attention to at the moment. It's more education focused than it is L&D, historically speaking. However, this year they got a lot of L&D people involved. I suppose they asked me about intelligent content, so you can skip that section. But the sections I found really interesting were AI ethics at work, where they spoke to John Fletcher, and climate action, where they spoke to Tess Robinson. Tess is a fantastic sort of L&D leader, works at Learning Age Solutions, or in fact, it's one of the directors there. And she spoke about kind of her view that L&D has this leading role to play in climate action within organizations, which my kind of don't think so detector immediately kind of went off. But actually, the more I read what she was saying, had to think about it, spoke to her about it, it kind of became really clear that when you step back from what L&D is often forced to thinking about itself, i.e. we train people, you're right, training is probably not going to solve the climate crisis. What we really do, though, is we manage and promote change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
once you step back to that point of view, I think I can see the argument for involvement. I think the challenge against it remains, we're there to serve the business.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's every business says it's made a commitment to carbon neutrality or net zero or whatever marketing thing they've signed up to. none of them are really going to go it. Well, again, some will say it's on number one priority, mostly oil and gas companies. Which is an interesting kind of roadmap to take. We would like to delete our company from the face of the earth, because that's the only way they can actually make it the number one priority, is to cease functioning. They're not doing that. And I suspect their L&D teams can't make that happen either. But I think there is something there, but I don't quite know how to make it like a practical reality. I think there's the potential, but not necessarily the will and not necessarily the opportunity right now. But I'd love to hear if anyone's doing anything different or seen anything different, because I would hope we would help rather than hinder.
Yeah, I mean, I have like the same gut reaction as you, like, especially with the stories that we've already talked about today. It's like, what more are we going to put on the first team to get fired during layoffs? Like, we've already got you appearing in court defending a training that you made. We've already got you, doing these $3.75 million grant initiatives on neurodiversity. Now we got climate action too. Like, what else are we going to just chuck at L&D and say, this is your responsibility, but also that you are the most disposable team many times in your organization? There's got to be, at some point, something's got to give.
Yeah, I must. And I wonder if part of that is L&D's own choice of priorities. Like, we will often jump at the latest shiny thing, whether it's a piece of technology, which we tend to think of, or whether it's the latest L&D trend.
Yeah.
Like, I remember maybe 6 or 7 years ago, a couple of years pre-COVID, coaching was going to fix everything. No matter what the problem was, coaching was the answer. Bringing in an external coach was the gold standard of how to help people.
Coaching conversations.
Oh, every
Did you go to Bob Pike?
No, but it was all the catchphrases came over. Whether it was the Tao of coaching or whatever it might be, all the things. And like, this isn't an anti-coaching spiel. Coaching's really valuable.
Sure, of course.
But like everything, we didn't go, coaching's a really valuable component of success. We went, coaching, it's all about coaching. Ditch training, it's all about coaching. Same way then it became ditch training, it's all about resources. Then, oh my God, COVID's hit. Everything's about training again. Put everything into Rise. We seem incapable of ever taking like a moderate approach of, maybe we need a little bit of everything.
Or is it that we seem incapable of being proactive rather than reactive? Maybe that's it. Maybe we're not being proactive enough, because I think that's our problem with layoffs and not being able to hold our own job security, right? And some of that's not our fault, but my thing is, we can't affect the parts that aren't our fault, right? Yeah. Like, there's not really much that we can do if our CEO says that they're doing climate action initiatives, but is dumping tons of pollutants into the nearest freshwater, know? So we can only control what we can control. And I think a lot of times we're just very willing to blame other people and continue to be reactive.
That's very true. Very true. Well, I'm going to hop on to my last story because then I want to give us enough time to get into the main meat of today's topics. So the last thing it's more of a kind of call to everyone here. So a lot of people right now will be grappling with the shift from the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 to 2.2. And that's super important. We all need to get compliant with 2.2. There are, I think, 9 new success criteria. Most of them probably won't apply to what you're doing, but it's still worth being aware of them, etc., etc., etc. However, already published are the version 3 draft guidelines. This is a much bigger update and fundamentally changes how some of the overarching labels like vision and hearing loss and that kind of thing are addressed. The really good thing about these early drafts is that they mark up individual statuses of sections. So whether they're like placeholders, i.e. literally lorem ipsum text in some places, we need to write about a thing here, but we haven't done it yet. They might be
Nice.
exploratory, they might be actively being developed, they might be in the process of refining the language, or they might already be mature standards that are just moving over to a new version. So it's not in a space yet where you want to be implementing this, but there's some stuff in there that it is worth really thinking about. There's stuff here about motion and what happens when things move around on the screen, automated entry, what happens when errors pop up, things that, have just been left a little bit loose in the past.
Sure.
Tons of really, I think there's literally at this stage, because it's draft, hundreds of new potential criteria, which of course will be whittled down.
Sure.
But it's interesting to see the areas they've acknowledged we're not covering this well enough. We've waited way too long to start addressing 2.2. We knew exactly what the 2.2 guidelines were going to be 18 months ago. And yet now I'm hearing people go, oh, we've got to get it done because we are like legally obliged to get it done by August 2025. It's like, then why have you waited this long?
Sure.
They were written a year and a half ago. You've surely made more content now that you have to retroactively fix.
Right.
Sorry. You could have authored all that to this standard when it actually became available rather than waiting.
Well, and plus you have to plan for all the workarounds around the edtech tools that just are refusing to comply and are not updating their product accordingly and who just don't really care because they've cornered the market. So what can you do? You have to create those processes now because it's going to take you probably 3 times as much time to do the workaround in your authoring tool.
This is it. So I would strongly suggest to people start. Yes, you may have your plate may be full. You may need to get 2.2 sorted, but as soon as it is done, start looking ahead to version 3. Don't wait for it to be like legislated into effect. It's there. And what you can also then do is contribute. Like W3 is an open standards group. The whole point is that you look at the drafts and offer them feedback. We often complain, oh, well, some of this isn't specific enough. Some of it's not clear enough. Tell them, rather than moaning about it in these calls, which we all do, go and tell W3 about what you need from them. I think they've actually done a good job. When you go back to version 1 and you look at where version 2.2 is, the language has become simpler. Not universally and not perfectly, but they are ultimately mostly still developers. They still speak developer, but it's a lot better than it used to be, and it only continues to get better if we offer feedback. So take some time, read the draft. Maybe not all of it; it's quite long, but it's worth taking a look at, if nothing else.
Nice.
And with that, let's talk. Would you want to do edtech updates? Because I think I don't have any edtech updates this month.
Yeah,
I've
it's
been
just
very disappointed.
there's not much is going on in the world of edtech updates, but Canva decided to do a Droptober where they're just dropping all sorts of features left and right. Things like Dreamlab image generator. Now you can brand your captions. You can make the font, the color, the background, all of that branded to your organization. AI-powered whiteboards, polls, and quizzes, which look like you can only take them in Canva, which is interesting. It seems like they're trying to get more and more people into the platform and stay there, which is a very interesting thing to notice. Improved Magic Write, which is what helps you, like your AI writing assistant. Expanded chart types. You can add more different chart types into things and more. But the most important thing that I wanted to raise here for people like myself who are freelancers, who have a few friends that we go in together on a team Canva account to save us some money, they were like, we're changing the whole way we price teams. And it was basically going to be a full subscription for every team member instead of the discount that you get going in together. Apparently they got enough kickback that now there's a banner when you log into Canva that says, hey, we heard you and we're not raising team pricing. So that's an important one.
That's an interesting move, isn't it? They've for so long billed themselves as like cheap. Like we're really, really cheap. That's now a tricky place to be as a business, because that is not a cheap, like that tool, like just much as storage space and bandwidth, and now the AI features. I'm not convinced they aren't losing money on a lot of subscriptions.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, what's a Canva subscription now individually?
I think it's
No
yeah,
idea.
I oh gosh. Today I don't even know. It's a good question. Do you find it?
Why is that? Plans and pricing. There we go. Individual.
Well, they do have a free account that limits you.
Yes. So there's a free account. Then there's Canva Pro, which is £100 for one person for 1 year, or Canva Teams, which is £90 per person per year, but with a minimum of 3 people, so 270 a year. So yeah, you save like 10 quid. Interestingly, you get a lot more if you're a team of, well, of course you're paying a lot more really for 270 quid a year versus 100, right? But even when you just look for 100 quid a year, unlimited use of their templates, 100 million plus photos, videos, graphics, and audio, 100 million plus. Whenever I see claims like that, part of me just goes, who's counted? Like that seems like such a big number. I'm never going to notice that I haven't got that many. So but you've lots of photos, graphics, blah, blah, 1,000 brand kits to manage your brand. I mean, if it's my brand, I'll create one brand. I don't quite get that. Cool, you've got 1,000 brand kits. That's helpful. Quickly resize and translate designs, remove backgrounds in a click, boost creativity. Plan and schedule social content. It's now a social media planning tool as well. That's weird.
It's getting very, very unwieldy. And like Chrissy said in the chat, as a longtime Canva lover, there have been so many new features in the past couple of years I can't keep up. Agreed. Like it looks like I said in the chat, it looks like Microsoft Word, where you log in and you do the 3 little things that you need, and everything else is just, you ignore it. It's in your periphery, right? And that's kind of how it is when I log into Canva now. Especially, I tried their video making. Like they have you can make a video. Is that bad? I ended up bailing and paying for a Camtasia subscription instead because it was so unfriendly, like just piecing things I don't know. Anyway, the interface was just unwieldy.
Well, there's a reason for a long time dedicated tools have been the way to go. Like, I don't really use any do-it-all tools. Like, I very specifically have video editing software and video capture software and color management software and photo software and vector graphics, or because each of them does that one thing really, really well. And I wonder if Canva, like, I'm a record, I'm no great lover of Canva. I don't personally see the point, but again, weirdly, as we discussed earlier in the week, that comes from a different background when it comes to what you're already used to, right?
Sure.
I totally see the point for someone who's coming at it from, I don't want to learn to design. I just want to have designs that I can use. Cool. Get it. Not a problem. What I don't get then is, if that's your business model, why try and then be everything to everyone else? Like the social media scheduler. What? Who is asking for that in their graphic design software?
Like that, right. Like stick to this. Yeah. I just feel it's hard to say like what, if you can't really see the direction they're going in, how can you be sure that they're still going to be useful to you long term? That's kind of the problem for me at this point. Or
if you're paying for the rights, because like, again, if they want to put their prices up, if I'm there saying, but I still just want the occasional quick cheap graphic, I don't want the AI features, the social media scheduling, the video stuff, so now, but I have to pay for it because it's all part. It's not as if these are additional things that I buy. They're all part of this
Ooh,
subscription.
that's a good point. That would be smart for them to do. And if they haven't already, break them up into different product teams and let them just function as multiple little small companies within one, like Adobe does.
I think the trouble is then you've got to be really, really good at what you do. Like the video editor is a good example, right? If you want someone to pay extra for your video editor, you've got to make a real good video editor. And I wonder if this is a response to like Adobe Express. But again, I think that's flawed, because if you try and compete with Adobe, and this isn't just because I'm an Adobe person, but if you try and compete with Adobe on creative software, you're going to lose. Everyone who has ever competed with them has lost.
Absolutely.
Because even when Adobe's had the worst products, their response has been, okay, we will buy your tiny little company and we will crush it. Like that's how Adobe works.
And I think there's something like, I don't know, like I learned Photoshop when I was 16 years old. Okay. That's if I created a baby in Photoshop, that baby would be old enough to drink now. Let's put it that way. That's how long ago I learned Photoshop. And I haven't used Photoshop in over 10 years. But I bet you if I opened it today, it would have 90% of the same interface that I saw when I was 16. And I think that's like, that's the power. Like, that's what people don't realize. Like, they figured it out. They figured out a way to make it as useful as possible. And then they just like make minor tweaks. They don't try to, like, I feel like these product companies just keep trying to overhaul the product with every new update and do something totally brand new and different. And I get it because there's a lot of competition and they want to stand out. But like, it's like the Cheesecake Factory menu, right? It's too dang much. And it's better to have 5 really good dishes than 105 mediocre ones.
This is exactly it. And well, who knows? Maybe we're wildly wrong and Canva will continue to be incredibly successful. But I worry about it a little bit. But with that, let's dive in to this topic made me really sad.
Did it? Why did it make you sad?
Because I've had really good experiences with this company and some of the people involved in this company.
Oh, did you? Oh.
And the reason that makes me sad is the fact of, therefore I know there are people in this business that know better. That had they been, I hope, and I'm going to choose to believe they were not asked, they were not consulted. And I imagine they, like I have in the past when I've worked in organizations, see this and gone, who the fuck wrote this? And why is it on our website? So I'm going to take the view that may happen or have happened because it's happened to me. Like, I've worked in an organization where they've said something, I've gone, I'm sorry, we're saying what now? Like, you're aware we look really dumb when we say that out loud. Like, don't say that. So who knows? That might be what's happening here. Take us through it, Heidi.
All right. So on a recent LinkedIn post, it's a very short post. The post itself only says 17-minute course creation, period. It's only possible with collaborative learning, period. And then a link to the call to action, right? And this comes from the LMS, Learning Management System company, 360 Learning. And what they are claiming, they've got a little, the link takes you to a marketing page. There is no video demo, no kind of, no real rationalization behind this 17-minute claim. There is, however, a side-by-side that I really, really, really want to highlight here today because it is just, it's interesting. Okay, Tom, are you ready for this? So they compare 360 collaborative learning to traditional e-learning. And they say that where course creation time in 360 collaborative learning takes 17 minutes, traditional e-learning takes 3 to 6 months for course creation. Oh, you're going to pull it up. Oh, it's beautiful. The course creation cost is $0 with 360 collaborative learning. So apparently you can get the LMS for free. Woohoo! I didn't know that 360 learning was free, but I found that out today. Whereas it's $30K for traditional e-learning. 30K. That's 30K. That's 30,000. I just want to clarify. $0 compared to $30,000 to create traditional e-learning. Course creation is done by everyone versus the L&D team in traditional e-learning. Course completion is 91%. Engagement is higher. Self-directed learning is higher. I'm not going to read it all to you, but you get the idea. Where do we start? Let's start at the time claim. Can we start there? Let's start at the top. Let's just start at the top. I don't even know which side to start on. First of all, I don't know. I'm not sure where the 3 to 6 months is coming from. Do you have an idea for that?
I've got a horrible feeling I do. So, do you all remember many moons ago when I can't remember who released it, but some seemingly okay body released a whole thing about 3 levels of interactivity in e-learning: level 1, 2, and 3. And they assigned like values to it and timelines for creating it and how effective it was going to be. I remember being introduced to this and kind of coming pretty close to wetting my pants. I laughed so hard. You know, it was nonsense then, and I've just got a horrible feeling that this might be talking those timelines.
Are you talking about the Chapman Alliance 2010 data? I can't find it now. I'm looking at it. How long does it take to create learning? It was a thing that said it took, and you could be right, because I had the same thought that it takes 140 hours to create 1 hour of level 2 or level 3 interactivity e-learning.
Yeah, that sounds right. And then you have to also count into that like SME title, all this jazz going on. Yeah,
because like 140 hours is like 3.5 months, so that aligns with this. But and I've honestly seen people defend that number recently. Like I keep hearing people defend that number on the instructional design subreddit, and I keep wanting to just comment, you are going to get fired if you keep quoting this, because like that was 14 years ago. That was pre-pandemic. That was pre-competition in the world of L&D tools and content creation tool. That was pre-YouTuber being a thing and content creation being scalable and easy.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many factors that play into that if you're still taking 3 to 6 months to make a 1 hour e-learning, I can't defend your open to work border. I can't do it. I can't do it because we just can't be that slow. So first of all, I think the data that they've got is kind of either ancient or misleading. And maybe they're even talking about too, like the time it takes to go back and forth between SMEs or whatever, and how a project can kind of get hung up, but still 17 minutes. And where is this coming from? And where is this data being pulled from? Right? Because if, let's say it's like, oh, well, we have a PowerPoint from the SME and we can turn it into a course in 17 minutes. Okay, well, I did one of those last week too, as an instructional designer. It didn't take me 3 to 6 months. It took me 2 days. You know, like it's not that different if we're comparing apples to apples here.
And this, like my gut feeling, because this is talking about collaborative stuff, I wonder if this is talking, because also mentions about everyone being the content creators. I'm wondering if what this actually is not course creation. It's not content creation. It's the ability for anyone and everyone to basically post stuff. It's user-generated content, which, to be clear, is a fantastic feature to have on your LMS, but it's not course creation.
Absolutely.
Those
No,
are
it's
two
not
different
course
things.
creation. It's a wiki. It's a company
Yeah,
wiki. Yeah, like it's and a lot of companies have that already that doesn't live in the LMS, right?
yeah,
So why are we pulling this into here too is the other question. But like, can we also talk about the cost for a minute?
yeah, man. Like whoever is charging 30K for a piece of e-learning, hats off to you. Like I
Yeah,
wish
get your
when I'm
money.
doing e-learning, I could be charging customers that much. Like, oh, I would have
Right?
a big old house and I would not be working anymore.
Well,
That's
I'm guessing I'm guessing that number came directly from the number above it, right? Because if you think about an ID salary, if you multiply 30K by 4 or 2, you're looking at 60,000 to 120,000. Okay, there's an ID salary. So maybe that's where the numbers I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here a
no,
little
no,
bit.
absolutely, yeah.
But still, if you, gosh, I hope you're not only working on one course. If you Jeez, like
Mm,
it's a gross overestimation, but also let me go back to the course creation cost being $0. 360 learning does not cost $0.
yeah.
I get really, really irritated when people try to pull one over on us because it's like, ah, oh,
It, like any company that says that a thing that you can do only once you've already bought their platform is free, it is a little disingenuous. It just is. Especially when it's behind
yes,
something as big as buying an LMS or an LXP. I think technically is what they brand themselves, but like
absolutely.
it's a huge, phenomenally expensive purchase for any business, no matter how big or small your business is. And my frustration here is that they don't need to do that. Like 360 Learning is one of the few big platforms out there that yes has big platform pricing, but also has per user no minimum user pricing of like $8 per user per month. But
Sure.
that's I can't think of any other big LXP provider that can offer that. So why put this nonsense on this table? Like that's such an unnecessary own goal.
Yeah.
And also, even if the platform was free, the course creation cost would still not be zero. The person who's putting stuff on that platform is being paid by the business for their time. They have a job to do. There is an
Right.
opportunity cost to them doing this rather than doing their job. Their job is not collaborative learning designer, I would hope. Their job is going
Ooh.
to be whatever they're doing. There is a cost
You
to absolutely every activity.
you bring up a really good point too, because if we're talking, I've been talking a lot about like time off of the floor and how we
Mm,
need to stop spending time off the floor. This EY thing, shows
yeah.
us the same thing. More hours of training per employee is not helpful. And so now you're not only making your employees take training, you're making them make training. How are you going to ensure that people get involved in this? When collaborative learning or user generated content first started becoming popular in LMSs, I remember we were switching to, Workday Learning. Don't ever use Workday Learning. God, I don't know. Maybe it's gotten better, but we used it when it was new and what a dud. But they had user generated content that they kept pushing as a premium feature. Like, look
Yeah.
at this new awesome feature. And our VP of HR was like, hard no. And she was very afraid that people would either upload inappropriate content, which I think is a totally baseless fear. Like, who has time for that at work? But she was also afraid that people would upload incorrect content and there would be not enough of us on the L&D team to vet that, right? And that incorrect processes, incorrect rules, incorrect policies would be out there being consumed, being believed, and not be true or not have time to be vetted.
Yeah, it's tricky, and like I worked on a product team where this was a major component of the product was user generated content, and it's a really tricky sort of conversation to have with clients who are nervous about this stuff. Interestingly, I think you're right. The inappropriate content stuff is a bit of a non-argument. They can already do that. I can already, if I am so inclined, put a bunch of disgusting stuff into an email and click send to the whole company.
Of
There is,
course.
your remedy there is to sack that person, same as it
Sure.
would be if they did the same thing on the others. But
Exactly.
it's incredibly rare, right?
Mhm.
The other side, like the incorrect information, is also less common than people would expect. Um,
Sure.
Actually, most people are quite nervous about posting something publicly, so they tend to really make sure that it's correct before
Sure.
posting it. You're going to get some, but look at it this way: at least now you know it's happening because they were doing it before. You just couldn't see it. They were
Right.
that highly experienced person that everyone asked because they'd been here for ages, but all their knowledge is 10 years out of date.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Now actually UGC can help surface those challenges and actually provide you a bit of a very light kind of needs analysis, or at least a red
Sure.
flag to a problem. But again, that is not free content creation. That is not,
No, it's not. Yeah.
it's just not as simple as this makes out, I think, is the challenge here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think that, um, I'm not sure what's happening, but there's just so much desperation from learning platforms. I think, I don't know, is it because people are realizing they don't really need one anymore? And they're trying to go without, because the other thing is that they've become so cost prohibitive if you've got like a small to medium company, and depending on the market share that the learning platform company wants to have. I remember being in talks with a pretty popular LMS company back when I was working for a small company of 50 people, and they are basically like, we can't help you because we don't have a pricing structure that you can afford as a small company,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I think there's a lot going on in the ed tech world, and I think there's a lot more competition too, to your point earlier, that anyone can make an ed tech product now, whether they know coding or not. So, now you're starting to see products pop up that were created by L&D professionals who are sick of being sold this crap, that are now just going, I'm going to do it myself, right?
Yeah.
And or you're getting companies that are like, we want to know what you want. Tell us, right? There was an authoring tool. The founder of an authoring tool was out there on Reddit going, hey guys, I'm going to DevLearn. What do you guys want from me as a vendor? And was legitimately responding to every single person in that thread to find out what they wanted. And my thing was, keep talking to us. We're the ones you want to talk to. We're the ones that are going to help you make your authoring tool or your learning platform more useful, and therefore more purchased.
That wasn't Daryl from Quantic, was it?
I think it was from Mindsmith AI.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's there's a tool out there called Quantic. The chap
Okay.
who's made it's called Daryl Headley. He was one of the minds behind the original version of Evolve. When it
Oh,
spun off
okay.
from Adapt, and he does very similar stuff at a lot of the UK conferences. He's just like, "Hey, can I just show you something?" And I'll show it to you. So, what do you think? What would you do differently? What should I build next? It's a wonderful way to build a product, as long as you don't lose sight of like your vision
Sure.
um,
Yeah, of
in there as
course.
well. Um, Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this made me really sad seeing this when you sent
Yeah.
it over, because it's just like, it's not necessary. Like, it's a cool feature. Adding a collaboration tool and a collaborative sort of knowledge sharing platform to your existing LXP is a cool additional feature. Like, undeniably. Is everyone going to use it? No, but that's part of being a big LXP, right? Not every feature you add is useful to everyone. Same as if you have VR support on your platform. Like, how much of your audience
Yeah.
is actually ever going to use VR stuff on your platform? Very, very few. But those who
Well,
do, great feature.
absolutely. But I mean, if you look at this, what's on the screen here, and you think, who is this directed toward? it's not directed toward an instructional designer.
No.
Right? Because to me, if I'm reading this as an instructional designer, I'm going, what about my job? Like, are you trying to work me out of it? You know, a lot of people get that kind of initial defensiveness, but like, this is for like a director, CLO level who's like, ooh, yes, love that. But they're not the ones who are working in these products every day. They're not the ones, most of the time, they're not even the ones making the final buying decision, right? Every time I have worked as a full-time employee where an LMS is being purchased, it is 60 to 70% of that decision is coming from the individual contributors being filtered up through an L&D middle manager who has 10 to 20% of that decision-making power. And then the people at the top, they don't want to make that decision. They want to sign it off as long as it's within the budget. They have very little to say. They don't really care. They just want it to be under X amount of dollars and do XYZ features. And then you guys go find the platform that's actually going to do this. And every time I've been part of this process, most of the time, the individual contributor is the one driving the decision, but they're being heard the least by the company who's trying to sell to you.
Yeah, do you know what? It's really interesting. Something that we do a lot at Evolve, one of the things we help organizations with is managing their tech stack. And we go into a lot of businesses where the L&D team complain that they are not sufficiently involved in buying decisions. Either they're completely ignored, or it's just their opinion is considered alongside a lot of others, even though it's their thing they're purchasing. And I get the frustration. But at the same time, we very much take the approach that we challenge back and say, okay, so talk to me about your commercial awareness. Talk to me about, how you're aligning the products that you want to buy to organizational objectives, and talk to me about your understanding of the financial implications of this platform and the contractual side of things and the data security side of things. And there's nothing there. There is, I've looked at the website and it's cool and I like the people there and I've done a demo and they gave me this free thing at the expo where I saw them, or whatever it might be. And there's a fundamental lack of understanding, I think, not all, but in many L&D departments. And specifically, I've got to say, like, among L&D leadership where it should exist. Like understanding of how businesses actually make purchasing decisions. The information that really matters versus this stuff. Like, organizations put this kind of stuff on their website because it works, because it gives headline numbers that show what can be achieved. And when you're at C-suite or even just below C-suite, any one decision cannot occupy too much of your time. You've got too many to make. You need to be given enough information to make an informed decision and then move on. You just have to. That's the reality. So the only way to make better decisions is to get better information. But if you're turning up with reams of opinion and I think and and wanting to have a really long conversation, and someone else turns up with a table like this, they are going to win, even if it's nonsense. True. Because this is actually what that person needs to be able to make a decision. Your opinions and thoughts and your well thought out thesis of this is too much. They can't pass that quickly and easily enough for it to be helpful in making a decision. So actually the only fix is to embrace this kind of communication style, but just do it with better information.
Yes.
But the vendors will only do that once L&D teams are savvy enough to do it themselves. Because in the meantime, their objective is to take your money, nothing else. Same as every other business on the planet. Like,
absolutely.
It would be lovely to go, oh no, they're L&D businesses, so they're good businesses. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing. I run a business. Trust me, my business's objective is to take your money. Like, I like to think we deliver value in exchange for that, but we still take your money. And that, like, when we design a workshop, yes, it's going to be impactful, blah, blah. Why is it really important that it's impactful? So that you book us again and then we can take more of your money. Like that, right. That's the cold, hard truth of how businesses operate, whether it's a small business like mine or the world's biggest businesses. but once you adopt that, you go, that's how tables like this get made. That's how
Sure.
we need to communicate, learn from it rather than just be upset about it, and take our
Right.
better information, our clearer insight, and put it in this format so we can make better decisions.
Right. Absolutely. And you make a great point about us not being good at this, right? Like you and I can't even figure out where these traditional e-learning numbers come from, but more importantly, we can't refute them because we don't have data to refute them. You know, we don't, as an industry, we don't have data. The last data point we have is from 2010.
Very little's changed. It's fine. It's probably still perfectly up to date.
Oh God.
Yeah. It's it's one of those things where I feel like we're right. We're all right to be frustrated by this stuff whenever we see it, but we also have to take our raps on there, going, "Well, we aren't fixing it, are we?" like, maybe some people are trying, but it's very difficult to steer that ship, right? As an industry, we are not fixing this. We're tutting at the hole in the side of the boat, but no one's getting any wood to plug it up.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any more on that one? And let us know in the comments as well if you've got any thoughts on that particular page.
No, I'm good.
We done on that one?
I'm good with it. Yeah,
Cool.
we're good.
Well, on that note, I will say, if you're on the Learning 360 website anyway, there is somewhere on their website a L&D masterclass series by David James. And the videos, and I think they're free and open to everyone. And the videos have really good stuff in them. Like really useful advice on how to be like a performance-focused, efficient L&D function. Which is why stuff like this seems so out of place to my mind when you've got voices like that in the business. But go and make use of that free resource, even if you don't make use of this, because there's some really good stuff on there. Which again, I think just highlights that thing of it. You know, these companies are not necessarily, I don't know, without the right information. It's
well,
just
and they're
sometimes...
also just they're no different than any other company. Like we like to think L&D companies are elevated and hip to what we do, but like it's very clear to me because I've seen David James's work and I know that a lot of really reputable people in L&D work with him and go on his podcast and talk to him and do things and collaborate with him. But it's very clear that he's working in a silo compared to the rest of the company at 360 Learning. And the marketing and comms department isn't looking at all at what he's doing, which L&D team and marketing and comms, it's run-of-the-mill company problems, you know?
It would appear so. Well, we are coming up towards the end of our show today. I want to wrap up with our "And We Leave You With" segment. I'm going to go with I'll leave you with, I'll see some of you at DevLearn, which is super exciting. So yeah, lucky enough. I say proper thank you. So thank you to ELB who have given me a ticket to be able to come along, which is fantastic. But also in other news, as we would say at the end of a news show, Tuesday this coming week, we've got like a mini IDTX here on the channel. I think we've got about like 5, maybe 6 sessions, each only half an hour long. So really, really sort of short, rapid fire stuff this time. And then into November, we've got the Future of Learning event in London and Connect. Connect's going to be fantastic on the 15th of November. Heidi's coming over for that. We're going to be doing a session together. If you haven't already got your ticket to Connect, now is the time to reach out. Evolve is sponsoring the event, so we'd love to be able to furnish you with some tickets if you can make it to London on the day and have you there with us for a live recording of a kind of crossover episode of our podcast, which is very exciting.
I know.
And that's my "We Leave You With" segment. Heidi, what would you like to leave us with?
It's just like a direct copy of yours. I will also be at DevLearn in a couple of weeks. And thank you to iSpring for offering me a ticket in exchange for, I will be giving 2 different 30-minute talks at the iSpring booth. They've got a little mini auditorium for like 20 to 25 people. And I will be there. The dates are and times are on my LinkedIn. I don't have them off the top of my head, but Wednesday and Thursday, I'll be talking and sharing my dissertation research, the research that I did talking about working with SMEs. So all sorts of research-based things that I'm so excited to share at DevLearn, because you don't always see that kind of thing there. And of course, as if we haven't seen enough of each other lately, Tom, I'll also be at Connect. So we'll just keep running into each other.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been lovely to spend an hour and a half with all of you online. Do check out some of the other stuff going up on the channel this week. There's been a bit of an upload issue, but there are more videos coming out this coming week. And do join us again next month when we do this all over again.
Yes.
See you next month. Bye.